Good everybody, what's up? It is Robert. Welcome to the BNZ Connect series. Today's episode is Hope is Not a Strategy. A lot of people in COVID having a lot of hope, but unfortunately for business, potentially not the best strategy. Today we're chatting with Lee Paulden from Scalable Sustainable Business Growth about company strategy. And obviously a lot of businesses have been struggling with setting strategy when it comes to this landscape, and Lee has a proven track record of being able to do some pretty awesome stuff with a whole bunch of businesses. Welcome, Lee. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Robert. Yeah, very, very well, thank you.
So maybe we'll start off here. I'm reading a little bit of the stuff. You're a highly experienced international certified business strategist. You've worked alongside over 300 different CEOs and managers and all the rest of it. So maybe we'll start right at the top. Why is strategy so important to a company when the majority of people, I guess people don't, but in your opinion, from all your years doing this in the hundreds, why is business strategy so important to kick off with?
The reason it's so important, or the big thing behind it, is that strategy, or simply put another way, company strategy, which is also referred to sometimes and quite often is referred to as corporate strategy, it drives revenue growth. And it also influences net profit. So from that perspective, that's where it's very simply at the start, that's where it's really, really important. The other part to it is that it's how you as a company differentiate in the marketplace and from your competitors. So without that, you're not really clear on how you are going to differentiate. On top of that, it needs to be really simple, really clear, and there's reasons behind that. But it's also giving you the long-term direction for the company. So we're talking 20, 30 years out, which for a lot of companies is hard to grasp, but it does look that far forward in time. So we need that clarity. The reason behind the clarity is that we need to know where the company's going. For the people inside the company, they need to know, where are we going? What's our pathway? Where are we traveling to? And that's becoming more and more important for our teams as well. So not only does it drive revenue growth, but it gives our people a sight into the future, or as we quite often term, it gives them a line of sight.
What you've obviously seen, hundreds, if not thousands of businesses at this point. Pre-COVID to then, I guess we're now obviously in this during sort of COVID phase, what percentage of companies did you feel like proactively tried to attack head on the strategy of their business with where they were heading, not only this month, this quarter, this year, this next decade, transition to the next? Like, how much did strategy shift when it came to business leaders dealing with COVID, how it intersects with strategy, from what you've seen in the last year and a half?
Well, I can really only give my experience on that, obviously, but what I can say is from the companies that I work with, after during 2020, after the first lockdowns with COVID, they all wanted to go back and readdress their strategy. So not uncommon, and you can see why. What's interesting is none of them changed it. So they've stuck to it. Not one has changed it. Now, admittedly, I had no clients in the industries that were heavily affected by COVID, like air industry or hospitality or tourism. But outside of that, none have changed their strategy. They've all stuck to it and said it's correct. We've got to put the accelerator down and get going.
Interesting. Now, do you think at a macro, when you fast forward this out, this will play out in the positive or the negative for those businesses who have not changed one bit?
Very much on the positive. They're data driven. They're not assuming anything. It's where are we at? What's the data telling us? What can we see into the future? And looking. And when we look at company strategy, there's elements we'll talk about later, but it's going back to each of those elements and reassessing: are they right? Is this going to be the case in the future? And by doing that, they're able to determine, in their cases, to stick with the strategy.
So how far out, you're talking about there hasn't changed one bit, how far out are they looking most businesses, let's say, for example, that hadn't dealt with business plan or business strategy, COVID hits, doors shut up, it's all level 4. They're trying to think about next week to survive, next month to survive, how much cash flows in the bank to get through the next, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it may be. In your opinion, from the stuff that you've seen, how far out are the successful companies that are doing business strategy well? How far out are they looking actually into the future and planning with the data that they've got in front of them?
Generally, well, for these companies, they're looking as far out as 2030, 2035. So that's, they're looking that far out. And so that's the first step, looking at that. Then they shift backwards to looking 3 years out. It's like, where's the world going to be in 3 years? What's changed with our core customers, or, working through different elements, but saying, what's the world going to be like 3 years from now? Change happens so rapidly that, yes, they know where they intend to be, 2030, 2035. However, when it comes to a lot more detail on strategy, then they're looking 3 years out. But yeah, this is not tactical stuff. This is strategy. So, but
interesting.
So much change can happen in 3 years that you've got to be really clear of what it's going to look like at that point.
But I wanted to bring it back, Lee, to what you're talking about, these elements, because I was just in a simplest form. What are the elements of company strategy that you talked about? What are these elements? Is this like earth, wind, and fire? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, there's 14 elements. But what the elements are that they address is their core values, right? So these are the elements that make up company strategy. So core values, core purpose, what they're most passionate about as a company, what they can be best in the world at, in their world, what drives their economic engine, core competencies, core customers, brand promise, their BHAG, or 10, 15, 30-year goal, 3-year highly achievable goal. Yeah. They're also looking at profit per X is another one, which is a strategic metric. They're very clear on what that is. It's not an operational metric, strategic. So they're looking at that, but also it's how you're going to differentiate, right? And how's that, how do you weave that into the other elements of company strategy? So it's, on top of that, they're looking at their key thrusts, key capabilities that need to be in place over 3 years out. What do we got to have in place 3 years away? So key thrusts is around, that could be bringing new products to market, new technology to market. It could be expanding into other regions globally. Those are key thrusts. Whereas key capabilities are assets. That could be technology, that could be things around your people, but it will be assets within the company. So that's the other parts so that's all those are the elements that make up company strategy. The other one that I didn't was 3-year highly achievable goal. They're very clear on where they need to be in 3 years' time.
I was just going to say, Lee, it doesn't sound like 14 elements. It's like a periodic table. There's a lot going on in there. I'm imagining most businesses don't actually know what a BHAG is. And I only learned about it, when I was sort of first starting out for a while. And just for clarity, it's big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That's the BHAG. Is that the still the terminology these days?
It is. Yeah. Yeah. So,
see, I don't even know most businesses have that. Like I from my experience of people I've talked to and stuff, I think it maybe just brings into light when it comes to strategy. It's, I think about chess, not checkers. It's 5 moves ahead. It's 10 moves ahead. It's trying to be, if you're a great chess player, you can go, 5 or 10 moves. If you're average, you go one or two. And it's probably the similar thing with business. But it comes around to there's a clear differentiator between them. And if you've got a big corporation that's thinking about 2030, 2035, you've got another big corporation that's thinking about the next quarter, and it's just like, then what? What kind of, from what you've experienced, are some of the biggest, downfalls of businesses that you've seen without clear company strategy that's either communicated to its shareholders or the staff as employees, whatever else as well? Like, what's the biggest difference between those who have it and those who don't?
The biggest difference is those that have it are the ones that are growing year on year on year. and yeah, they're also providing above industry average benchmarks, but they're consistently doing it. So that's the biggest difference. The reason behind it is when they're really clear on strategy, as in company strategy, then they very easily can see what's a distraction and what's not. So they know what to say no to, and it goes back to that old saying, great companies say no more than they say yes. But the reason is they're really clear on the strategy and long term. Right? And when it comes to the BHAG, Big Hairy Audacious Goal, yes, it is long term. And they look long term and work backwards. They don't work from now forwards. You've got to look way out in time and then work backwards. However, a BHAG cannot be set without other elements of company strategy first being set. Because the high risk is if you just go and set a BHAG, you may actually set one that's going to take the company in the wrong direction. I'm supposed to be going this way, but I'm going that way. That's what a BHAG can do if they try and set that first without, setting the others early, or first. Yeah, you could be heading.
Well, it could be the wrong metric, right?
Yeah,
that's exactly right. Like it could be they could be, hey, I want, 1 million customers, but if they don't have the staffing, maybe that's not the right thing. Is it profit margin? Is it direction? Is it partnerships? What's that North Star in the clear? So maybe at a start point, out of all those elements, what do you feel would be the most mission critical, top priority element or thing they should try and address first when it comes to business strategy, trying to think a bit more macro long game?
Yeah, there are elements there. There's 5. So it's core values, core purpose. Those two are your first two to set, right? With your core purpose set, which is why you're here, right? And this is something companies need to get clear on. Purpose is not mission and it's not vision. Purpose is why you're here. It's what difference are you going to make in the world as a company, right? It's very different to mission. Mission is how you're going to get there. Vision is what it looks like once you've arrived there, and once you've actually achieved your purpose. So your purpose is why you're here, okay? But core values and purpose are the first two. Then the next 3 that have to be set before setting a BHAG is what are you most passionate about as a company? That's the next one. Okay, the 4th one is what can we be best in the world at as a company in our world? And then the last one is what drives your economic engine, right? And those 3 are crucial. They are what's termed the hedgehog concept, and they must align. So only when you've got the answers to those and you've got the alignment do you set the BHAG, because then you're setting the BHAG and it's going to be the right direction.
So with this type of thinking, going a bit longer out on the macro with it, like how long do you think this sort of strategy planning should take? You're a small business in New Zealand, you're looking out into the future, how can you evolve and, re-energize and reinvent your different business to take into new markets, whatever it may be. Like how long do you think this process should take or would take or in terms of timeline?
You've actually hit the word on, the nail on the head with the word process, right? Strategy is a process. It's not an event, okay? And that's something really important for companies to understand, right? It takes 9 to 12 months for a company to get really clear on its strategy. Even companies that I work with that are 20 years old or 25 years old, that don't have a company strategy, it still takes them 9 to 12 months. There's 14 elements to work through. We need space, as we work through it, we need space to reflect. And the other thing is some of it we actually need to go and do research on and get the data and the facts. And because of that, it just takes time to work through it. They can usually get through the first 5 elements in a couple of days. However, beyond that point, it takes more thinking, more time. The upside of that is that, and the upside is those that are clear, they get a massive return on the investment they put into that process. And it's not just for 1 year, it's for many years to come. But this is why I suspect, and I do hear it, companies say, oh, we're too busy. But I look at it and go, well, you haven't got a company strategy, so how much money and resource are you wasting into things that actually are not important to the company, and we don't know what they are because we haven't got a company strategy. So the return's massive, but yeah, it takes time. It's a process.
So out of everyone's busy, and especially small businesses, they're saying, I think it was like 97% of New Zealand businesses are small businesses with employees under 20. Out of say 500,000 businesses in New Zealand, what percentage do you feel don't have clear company strategy? Is it 50%, 60, 20, 10, 90? Like if you had to throw a number at a dartboard of like, Lee thinks this much, what would that number be?
90%.
Really?
Yep.
And out of that 10, is that documented as well? Or maybe the 90% is just all in their head. They've just got the plan, they just haven't told anyone yet.
Yeah, exactly, which is different. And that's one of the problems, it's sometimes why CEOs come to me. It's, they say to me, I've got a vision, but I don't know how to get there. And I don't know how to get there piece is the company strategy that's missing. It's in their head, but their people don't know it, right? And so how do you get your people aligned? If you don't know it and don't have it framed up, you can't easily communicate it. And it's got to be simple. Strategy is not a lengthy action plan. You should be able to get it down and have it on one piece of paper, one A4 piece of paper for your strategy piece. But yeah, they haven't gone through the process to make it that clear, and that's what they're struggling with. Is that I can't get the people aligned. I'm struggling to communicate it. People that don't remember it. I hear that a lot. Yeah, but I would say I feel 90%.
Yeah, and from a leadership standpoint too, if they're saying the excuses that they don't have time, well, I'm sure they're probably wasting a lot more time copy pasting the same conversation with employee after employee after employee after meeting after meeting after meeting, because they haven't actually either clearly articulated enough or simplified it down into a one page or ... So maybe for the 90% hypothetically in New Zealand that are small businesses with less than 20 employees that make up 97% of the workforce, like where do you think they should kick off with? If they're watching this, they're like, okay, that's it, I've got some time, I'm stopping, I'm going to think about it, I'm going to take on some strategy stuff. Where should they go? What should they do? Like, what is their first step to try and step into this world of company strategy to look forward to the future?
You mean as in where to access resources, or?
Yeah, like what's the first thing they should do? Is it talk with the team, bring them all around? Is it engage with someone? Is it just stop and reset and think about these elements? Like what would be some of the first key steps to kick off with to try and start this process and this journey of company strategy?
There's two parts to that. The first part's very much the CEO should do it with their leadership team, and even when you're small, you've still got a leadership team. I'm not talking C-suite managers. It's who's in your leadership team. It's getting your leadership team involved and starting to work through it. Because then by doing that, everyone knows the strategy and the leadership team. They know the understanding behind the elements of strategy, and that's really important. Then the CEO is not having to relay it back. And they're not. It's a lot easier. And by doing that, you've got the understanding, you've got commitment, you've got the alignment from the leadership team. Then it becomes much easier to communicate it into the company. And one of the keys here is that they should be talking about strategy all the time. So that's one part. In many cases, yes, they'd need someone, or it helps a lot to have an expert help you through it. The frameworks are there around those 14 elements. A number of the large universities have those frameworks around the world. There are consultants and mid-market business coaches that do as well. But they are, the frameworks are right, they're reputable, and those people are experienced. So but if they go down that track, they really need to check that if they're bringing someone in, that they really are qualified, because there's many consultants and coaches that aren't. And that's not a negative, and I'm not getting at them. It's just that they specialize in different areas. Business, there's a lot in business. You can't be a specialist at everything. So it's just picking the ones that are, and talk to their clients.
Yeah, and obviously, and the good thing about New Zealand is, when it's small and everyone knows everyone within 2 phone calls, you can definitely talk to someone who's either worked with them or knows someone, because New Zealand's a pretty small place. So to wrap things off, Lee, what I was going to ask is, if people want to find out more about your business, like what's a website, or where can they go to, or what can they do to check out a little bit more around some of the work that you're involved with?
Can I come to that in a minute? One thing I do want to explain.
Yeah.
It's really important for strategy, and where I see a lot of New Zealand companies don't understand, and that's fine because they just haven't learnt yet, is that the difference between company strategy and divisional strategy. And this trips a lot of companies up, right? So divisional strategy, quite often they will have strategies in the company, but they're divisional. Now, what I mean by that is divisional strategy is strategy for a business unit or division in the company. So, for example, they'll have a sales strategy. That's divisional strategy. It is not company strategy. You've got a strategy for marketing. That is divisional strategy. Right? It could be an IT strategy. It could be a people and culture strategy. It could be a logistics strategy. They are all divisional strategies. That is not company strategy. And what I see is a lot of companies have those strategies, but I still get CEOs coming to me and talking to me and saying, the company's pulling in different directions. They're all executing divisional strategies, but purpose of a divisional strategy is it's very short term. It'll be 12 to 24 months. It should be extremely succinct, 3 to 5 sentences in length for the division. However, the really important piece is that those divisional strategies must align with the company strategy, and they're an enabler to achieving the company strategy. Okay, they're not the strategy itself. Now, another thing I see with companies is they will have maybe some elements, and I quite often strike this, is they've got some elements of company strategy, and they're pretty clear. And then they've got divisional strategies, and then they mix the whole lot up, and everyone's confused, right? So it's because they haven't got the company strategy clear, and then the divisional strategies aligned to actually, we execute these, we will achieve the company strategy over the medium term to long term. So that's just a point I want to make that I strike a lot is, the difference.
No, it's interesting because it's like a second layer to it. So if you're just, quickly talking on if 90% of these potential businesses don't have a strategy altogether, and if the 10% is again got a disconnect between a macro company strategy, but then disconnect on the micros, it's probably, and if there's bad communication, I'm guessing it probably causes a lot of overlap and heartache and heartbreak and lots of, pull in wrong directions and tension within organizations because there's not a clear, gap between where the macro big ship is going to what the little speedboats are doing to head in that direction. But once again, it probably comes down to as well, having that clearly communicated, documented, working with the team, and it probably, puts more on notice for the leaders to think about kind of 2 different layers to it. Because that's actually a really good point, like macro and micro within it. See, you're a smart man there, Lee. You know some stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I know. It's just the reason I make the point is, that's where a lot of companies, with that going on, the 2 things that I see quite often happening is confusion in the people because they can't see the direction clearly and simply. And the other thing I quite often see is that the companies are missing, and I hear it from companies that when we're talking about this, but they are missing their results. It's like they're not achieving the results that they really wanted to achieve year after year. They'll miss it. They'll miss it. When you dig down, sometimes it's a confusion. But that's chewing up a lot of resource too.
No, I definitely get it. So let's get you plug in for your website now with where people can go to check out some more stuff. Where do they go to? What do they do?
They go to, ssbg.co.nz. There's plenty of blogs and tools on there. They can also go to my LinkedIn profile and learn a lot more about me there. And the other thing that'll be able to help them is that, mid-October I'm releasing a book, Radical Alignment to Core Strategy. So that's a step-by-step process through company strategy. So, and it's, I've written that as a tool. So they'll be able to access that on Amazon as well.
There you go. Appreciate your time, Lee. You've been watching the BNZ Connect series, talking all about strategy. For more information on scalable, sustainable business growth or how BNZ can support your small business, we'll be putting a few links below in the comment section. Appreciate your time, brother. Enjoy the rest of the day, and thanks for joining us to talk about strategy, macro, micro, and all the things in between. Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks very much, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy. Good work.